Let's begin with security matters. At least 13 hunters are feared dead after suspected Lakurawa terrorists ambushed their seasonal hunting expedition in Urumi Forest, Talewa Ward, Tangaza local government area of Sokoto State. Now, sources say the hunters, drawn from communities in Tangaza and Gwadabawa local government areas, were attacked between midday and 1 p.m. on Thursday, despite repeated warnings from authorities about the heightened risk of violence in the area. Hunters armed with Dane guns and accompanied by their dogs reportedly stumbled directly into the terrorist hideout deep in the forest. Meanwhile, suspected Lakurawa fighters launched a separate assault on Mongoho village in Tangaza on Friday. That attack was repelled by military forces who recovered stolen livestock. The former Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, has described Nigeria's constitution as the most maligned document despite its profound and useful objectives. Now, the former Lagos State governor spoke during the 30th anniversary launch of Nasar Lahi Fateh, that's NASFAT, held at the main auditorium of the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR, that's in Yaba, Lagos State. Fashola, while speaking on the theme Faith, Social Justice and Economic Empowerment, Pathways to a Better World, submitted that the country's constitution is enabling as it has provision for social justice and speaks to the kind of Nigeria every Nigerian yearns for. And so, to go deeper into this, we're joined by legal practitioner Elvis Asia. Mr. Elvis, many thanks for doing this with us. Let's just get started. Are there ambiguities in the language of the Constitution that contribute to public or institutional misinterpretation? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, the Constitution, the Nigerian Constitution, is not as if there are ambiguities that gives rise to challenges and all the crises that we see, both in terms of interpretation of the courts and in the public opinion. I think the problem with the Constitution is that it does not reflect the nature of the country. It does not reflect the structure of the country. Nigeria is not a nation. Nigeria is just a state with many nations. And so in designing the Constitution, you must, put that at the front burner and, put in principles that would ensure that all nationalities within that state are given a voice, are given fairness, and are given equal representation. And so the challenge with the Constitution is that it pretends that Nigeria is a country, Nigeria is a state. Nigeria is not a nation. So when you have this over-centralization of power and, everybody runs to Abuja to get anything meaningful from Nigeria, then you're bound to have so many voices and crises from different parts of the country, like what we are seeing now. So it's really not just a matter of ambiguity. It's really a foundational problem with respect to the structure of the country as designed by the Constitution, which does not align with the nature of the country.
And to what extent?
That's what I think.
Right. And to what extent does judicial interpretation, case law, clarify or complicate the constitutional provisions in Nigeria?
Of course, we have seen so many issues with interpretation that are arisen from the courts. Politics has gone into a lot of things, and that is further complicating the challenges that we have with the workability of the current constitution. We've seen instances where the courts, in an attempt to interpret the constitution in a manner that would perhaps suit political expediency, we deviate from the intent and purpose of the Constitution. I'll give you an example of the last elections where there was an issue as to whether other candidate had won the election on the basis of what the Constitution requires in terms of the required number of states and the FCC that should be won by a candidate to be declared an elected president in Nigeria. And we saw the interpretation that came from the court. And so, yes, we have had that challenge. And like I said, it's really a matter of the politics that we have in the country and a lot of the issues arising from the electoral provisions that you have in the constitution. And in my view, all of this, boils down to the issue of a foundational problem. Because you see, no matter how much you try to beautify a building, if the foundational issues that were not properly laid, even if you beautify the building with gold, it will still crumble. So the courts are limited. Yes, they make attempt to interpret the constitution, but in the final analysis, the people don't feel it because that interpretation and even the intention of the constitution itself does not give voice to their yearnings and aspiration as a people.
Right. And what legal mechanisms or reforms could improve constitutional literacy? And I think this is very, very important, and also reduce misinterpretation among both citizens and, most importantly, officers of either the court or the law.
Well, I mean, there are so many ways you can try to get the people to be familiar with the Constitution. And I think one way to do that is to ensure that people can have access to the Constitution in the traditional languages that we have in the country, at least the main traditional languages, so that that way they're able to relate with the provision of the Constitution and think through it in line with their mother tongue. So that's one way to do it. Those days we used to have the National Orientation Agency as a functional state agency that was meant to disseminate information, let people understand a lot of the major laws and regulations in the country. We don't seem to be having that anymore. So that's also one way to another way to look at it. And then we also now need a National Assembly that can open issues to proper debate so that people can become interested in the Constitution. A lot of the things that we do in Nigeria are shrouded in secrecy. When you take actions like what we have seen in Rivers, for example, the people begin to wonder, is this what the Constitution says? And so in trying to increase the literacy of the people in terms of understanding the Constitution, the government must put in a lot of effort and money to doing so. We can have a summarized, annotated Constitution that people can easily have access to online, and they can understand their rights and responsibilities and civic duties as citizens. But unfortunately, we don't really think that these are really important. And the most important thing, like I've earlier said, is that you need to amend or come up with the Constitution that reflects the will of the people. This Constitution was foisted on Nigerians, even though it says that we the people of the country we have given ourselves the Constitution. It's just a lie, because it was the military and a few people that came to put this together. So once you have a Constitution that reflects the will of the people, then the people would naturally buy into it and understand it. But this particular Constitution is not understandable because it doesn't even give clarity in terms of clarity that reflects, that align with how the people see themselves within the territorial area called Nigeria.
Can the Constitution be considered truly democratic if it was enacted without a referendum?
I don't think so. I don't think you can have a proper constitution, a people's constitution, without a referendum on at least the major issues. For example, issues that has to do with the structuring of the country, the kind of political system you want to have, the kind of national assembly you want to have. If you don't have a referendum on these fundamentals, what you have is nothing but more like a legislation. Any other piece of legislation by the National Assembly. But a constitution should reflect the will of the people. And the way to do that is through referendum, through subjecting it one way or the other to the, getting the buy-in and consent of the people, and people making their input into the process. And that's why you will say that this is the people's constitution. But when you don't have that, we have never had that as a nation. This 1999 constitution was just a few people constituted by the military, who perhaps wrote with their intentions at the time. So for you to have a people's constitution, yes, you must have a referendum on the fundamental issues that will, constitute the nucleus of that constitution.
All right.
And we haven't had that, which is why it's probably difficult for people to even appreciate the Nigerian constitution.
All right. Well, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us, Elvis. Elvis Ashe is a legal practitioner who joined us live to give us a bit of insight following comments made by the former Minister of Works and also former Governor of Lagos State, Fashola, Babatunde Fashola. Switch gears now to the capital as supporters of detained social media activist Martins Vincent Osei, popularly known as Very Dark Man, have staged a protest in Abuja calling for his release from EFCC custody. Now, the protest began at a GT Bank branch in Area 3 and proceeded to the EFCC headquarters in Jabi and then later converged at the National Human Rights Commission in Maitama. The demonstrators described the arrest as unlawful and accused the anti-graft agency of stifling free expression. They also urged the Human Rights Commission to intervene in securing his release. Now, the protesters vowed to sustain the demonstrations until the activist is either released or formally charged in court. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has condemned the arrest and continued detention of social media activist Martins Vincent Osei, popularly known as Very Dark Man, by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, describing it as another sign of growing authoritarianism under President Bola Tinubu's administration. The Very Dark Man's arrest was confirmed by EFCC spokesman Dele Oyewale, who stated that the activist was taken into custody following petitions from several individuals on cyber-stalking allegations. In a strongly worded statement posted on X, formerly Twitter, on Monday, Atiku accused the government of weaponizing security agencies to suppress dissent and intimidate critics of the administration. Away from that, outgoing African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina has come under fire for his recent comments on Nigeria's post-independence development. Presidential aide Bayo Onanuga criticized Adesina's claim that Nigerians are worse off today than in 1960, calling it, quote, based on figures that do not align with available data, end quote. Now, in a post on X, formerly Twitter, on Monday, Onanuga challenged Adesina's comparison of GDP per capita between 1960 and 2025, describing it as both flawed and misleading. He cited data indicating that Nigeria's GDP in 1960 stood at $4.2 billion with a population of 44.9 million, putting per capita income at just $93. Onanuga also noted that significant economic growth only began in the 1970s, largely driven by oil revenue. Earlier, economic analyst Olusegun Okunade joined us earlier to unpack this. Take a look.
When you speak to the welfare of the citizen, let me take cardinally things that speak to education. A lot of us are beneficiary of the free education on the part of the government while we were growing up in the early 80s. And I grew up in Lagos. I was born and brought up in Lagos. We can give credence to what Jack Conde did. I'm not even referring to what our fathers and forefathers did when he came, when you want to speak to education. But what is the status of things as per the public schools that we have in the populace now? Can we compare it? It's more of private schools and people pay through their nose to actually have that. When you go to the health sector, I'm still speaking to the welfare of an average citizen. When you go to the health sector, we have primary health center. How many of them can we speak to it that is very much functional as we speak? I read and I saw our fathers, when you speak to economy, when you graduate from school those days, you have all the people that are talking, inclusive of the special advisor to Mr. President. I'm sure he benefited from coming out as a school start holder and having access to vehicles to go around. There is this vehicle they call Ijapa, Volkswagen product then that a lot of them have access to. They can afford to buy new 504, buy new vehicles. How much of it can we speak to as we speak currently?
Go on a short break, shall we? When we return, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde shakes up cabinets, swipes 5 commissioners. We'll tell you all about this just after the break. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State on Monday carried out a cabinet reshuffle. A statement by Special Advisor on Media Sulaiman Olarewaju said the governor announced this in a letter signed by his Chief of Staff, Segun Ogunwusi, in Ibadan, the state capital. Makinde said the movement are with immediate effect, urging them to continue to discharge their duties with utmost loyalty and commitment to the state. By the governor's action, the Commissioner for Public Works has been moved to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, while the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology has been moved to the Ministry of Establishments and Training. Meanwhile, the current Commissioner for Establishments will now lead the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. The Chief Judge of Gombe State, Halima Mohammed, has ordered the release of 85 inmates from Gombe and Biliri custodial centers. Between last Tuesday and Friday, the State Criminal Justice and Inquiry Committee, under the leadership of the Chief Judge, visited 4 custodial centers located in Gombe, Biliri, Cham, and Tula. 42 inmates were released unconditionally, 38 inmates with conditions attached from Gombe Medium Custodial Center, while 3 inmates were freed unconditionally and 2 with conditions attached from the Biliri Center. Speaking during the visits, the Gombe Chief Judge said the committee is focused on decongesting the custodial center and promoting inmates' welfare. And off to Kano State, where the residents of Galandinsi, Gwali local government of Kano State, have expressed diverse opinions over the appointment of 2 Galadima Kano and the police siege on the residents of the Galadima located in the area. Now, this is coming barely a few hours after the police vacated the area, paving way for the Galadima Kano Manu Sanusi, backed by the state government-supported Emir Sanusi Lamido II. While some of the residents welcome Manu Sanusi, others believe the Galadima, turbaned by Ado Bayero, should have been ushered into the residence by the police. News Center's Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more in this report.
Anguwan Galadanci, Gwale local government area of Kano State, the community hosting the official residence of the Galadiman Kano, a title now controversially held by 2 persons, Manir Sanusi and Sanusi Ado Bayero. No thanks to the unending emirate crisis that has been on for almost a year now. This building is the bone of contention, as supporters of the 2 emirs believe that the Galadima, turbaned by their favorite emir, should occupy the residence.
Sai aka ce za a naɗa wannan, to mun ji daɗin naɗin nan da aka yi masa tun da ɗan uwansa ne ciki ɗaya. Mun gode, mun gode, mun gode, mun gode. Allah ya taya shi riƙo.
Mai girma sarkin Kano Muhammadu Sunusi na biyu ya kawo mana jajirtacce mai son ci gaban mutane, sannan kuma wanda ya san haƙƙin talakawa, yana taimakon mutane 100 bisa 100. Kuma mun ji daɗi da naɗa wannan Galadima da aka yi, Alhaji Maniru, Ubangiji Allah ya taya shi riƙo.
To ai ka san abu ne wanda gashi nan dai abun ya rufu kaso biyu. To mu dai gaskiya wanda muke baya shine Sunusi Ado Bayero.
Yawa ba Manir, sabida abu ne akan doka wanda gwamnati wanda aka tabbatar magana tana kotu, kuma muke bin doka da oda. Akan wannan muka sani mu muna tare da naɗi da Alhaji Aminu Ado Bayero mai martaba sarkin Kano.
Some of them did not hide their displeasure over the sealing of the residence by the police in the wake of the crisis.
Sai na ga ma'aikata, to na ma yi tunanin ko turo su aka yi su ba da tsaro saboda naɗin da za a yi. Ashe maganar saɓanin ba haka ba, amma dai a lokacin gaskiya na ji ban ji daɗi ba sosai da sosai.
An hana iyayen mu wucewa, gashi ranar Juma'a ce, hanya ce da ake bi a je masallaci, amma sun toshe. Bayan Allah, tsofaffi da suke biyowa ta hanyar nan ita ce mafi sauki zuwa masallacin Juma'a, amma sun toshe. Gaskiya ban ji daɗi ba a cikin raina, saboda ba ni ba, iyayenmu na gida wayansu sun dawo daga kasuwa ba san da abin mutum da mu ma tun cikin dare muka zo muka gani. Gaskiya abin ya ɗaga mana hankali, mun da ta hana abin nema za a yi ko yaƙi ko faɗa ake na daba haka ko wani abu.
wannan abu bai mana daɗi ba, amma sakamakon cewar wani abu ne aka yi shi bisa kuskure da rashin sani, to amma dukkan wannan abin ya farko zai yi ƙarshe, kuma wannan ba shi ne farau ba, abin da ya fi haka ma an yi mana mun jure shi.
Gaskiya yayin da na kai zuwa da daddare na ga 'yan sanda sun shigo zuwa galadanci sun yi kamfen ɗin gidan galadima, sun tsaya sun kulla gidan galadima. So wannan abu gaskiya za a ce wannan abu ni dai a gani na yayi matuƙar yi min daɗi. Saboda me isa ya min daɗi? Saboda ina ganin da cewar idan aka naɗa wannan galadiman wanda Sunusi Lamido zai naɗa ga wanda Aminu Ado zai naɗa, to sai in ga kamar idan aka zo kamar za a ɗan samu wani matsala kamar irin tashin hankali haka, to shi isa da 'yan sanda suka zo suka kulla gidan sai na ji daɗi a raina.
For now, the two Galadimas of the Kano Emirate will continue to function in their position till the Supreme Court delivers its final verdict on the impasse and the authentic Emir of Kano. In Gwale local government area of Kano State, Emmanuel Bagudu.
Domestic violence in Nigeria cuts across the lines of class, religion, and culture, leaving a devastating trail of physical, emotional, and psychological scars. Experts say that it continues to be promoted by a culture of silence, shame, and stigma on victims, as enablers and collaborators are hardly brought to justice. News Central's correspondent Aishat Salihu brings us the story of a survivor, her experiences in a battle to move on from the scourge.
My ex-husband, 22 years ago, he stabbed me with a knife close to my heart. I could have shown it to you now. I also have a bottle stab at the side of my face here. This place. He smashed my head with a stab bottle. The broken pieces remaining in his hand, he stabbed me near my face here. Look at my face, look at my eye. It was a narrow escape. It could have rendered me one-eyed woman.
This is the story of many in Nigeria, as domestic violence has become an all too familiar trend. While it takes several formats and can be categorized as physical, sexual, and emotional forms, some describe it as a pattern of coercive control where one person seeks power over another.
And if you don't resolve it, the other person who has the power, because actually the violence is power play. The one that has the upper hand is going to take charge and believe that dealing with the other person, maybe slapping, punching, pulling of hair, isolation, whatever it is going to make sure that person fears or respects him.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015 provides a legal framework for the prevention of and protection from violence in Nigeria. It prohibits all forms of violence, including domestic violence, and provides for sanctions against perpetrators.
So what the agency does is, number one, enlighten the society on the existence of these acts, and then make known to the public the punishment for offenses that are committed. Sometimes you find people saying, oh, I don't know, this is an offense. Ignorance in law is not an excuse.
But beyond government agencies, non-governmental organizations play a crucial role in providing support and advocating for change.
Our advice those concerned that are being traumatized that should take a bold step and walk away instead of them to die in silence. Let them come out of it. And when you come out of it, have something doing. Don't rely on men.
In a society where cultural and religious beliefs often play a significant role, it is important to address the issue from all angles.
Pray before we go in, and when the going gets tough, we also pray and be calm. And when the going becomes life-threatening, then we quit very, very amicably.
The survivor's journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
I have decided to hate men. I run away. I've remained single since 2018 because of this man. I don't have a relationship. I don't trust in any man. I am on my own.
Domestic violence thrives in silence, Experts say domestication and implementation of the VAP Act of 2015 across all states in the country, collaboration between government, NGOs, religious institutions, communities, and individuals are measures needed to break the silence, support survivors, and hold perpetrators accountable. In Abuja, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
Nigeria's government has been tasked to put in place mechanisms that will revive the reading culture among youths, adolescents, and children in the country. Now, this was during a live podcast session in the nation's capital, Abuja, where reading enthusiasts expressed worry at the nation's reading culture, saying that it has regressed over the years. They say reading has immense benefits which are vital to the growth and development of young Nigerians, thus it should not be taken for granted. Amadi Nui reports.
Reading culture in Nigeria is generally considered to be weak, with a decline in reading habits. This is particular among youths and students, and has been attributed to several factors like a lack of access to books, inadequate educational resources, and a preference for other forms of entertainment, especially with the rise of technology. While Nigeria has witnessed a growth in online presence due to the accessibility of technological gadgets like phones, tablets, and others, some enthusiasts believe that social media cannot replace the culture of reading, which is essential to growth and development.
It's one thing to have to read and how to implement the reading or what you've aimed. So the social media gives you an idea, talk about an idea, tells you what they feel and everything. It's up to you now to know if to consume that idea or to work on the idea for your own.
At this live podcast session in Abuja with the team, innovative strategies for promoting reading among youths in Nigeria. Reading enthusiasts say the team is apt, as reading has very many benefits for young citizens and children.
Reading is very important in creativity. It helps open the mind, it helps inspire, it teaches. So it is important that we propagate this culture beyond the urban areas into the rural areas, take it to the schools.
Reading is very essential to lifestyle, and it expands your knowledge. Definitely, it improves your focus, and it also, inspires personal growth.
Books take you to places you never dreamt to be. Get to exercise your brain, and one of the ways you get to exercise your brain, get to know a lot about your environment, and it helps you to plan better.
They call on Nigeria's government to do more in reviving the reading culture of the nation, which is fast facing a decline. Some say intentional steps must be put in place to ensure that citizens embrace reading.
Now in the UK, the government is putting steps to bring back that reading culture. Even in America too, they're putting steps to bring that reading culture back. So why is our government not doing anything about it? Or why is our government? So let individuals do it. Create a platform. Make books accessible. We have people that tell books are quite expensive based on priorities. So make books accessible to them, make it available to them. You can give it to them for free. You can work with organizations to make books available. Maybe that should be what they should talk about, like having subsidy, Make book available to people, encourage people to write. That is one. They create a platform for people to read.
The initiative, also known as Bootgate Kids, aims to ensure that young Nigerians embrace the culture of reading, which is vital to their education and development. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
You're watching news now on News Central Television. Coming up, at least 7 people killed, 20 injured in Fangak County of South Sudan. We'll tell you more after the break. Stay with us. At least 7 people have been killed and 20 wounded, along with the last remaining hospital and pharmacy in the country's Fangak County that have also been destroyed in bombings, and this is in South Sudan. And this according to Médecins Sans Frontières. A bomb was dropped on the county's only pharmacy, reducing it to ashes and damaging the adjacent hospital. Now, this was followed by a drone strike on Old Fangak a town in the Greater Upper Nile region where at least 7 people were killed. It was not immediately clear who carried out the attack or what the motive was. South Sudan has formerly been at peace since a 2018 agreement ended a 5-year civil war between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and those backing first Vice President Riek Machar. Fighting was reported Monday in the Democratic Republic of Congo's South Kivu province, despite ongoing peace talks in Qatar. Now, eyewitnesses said a group of young civilian volunteers supported by the Congolese army was attacked in the resource-rich mountainous VZ region by M23 affiliated rebels. Now, this renewed violence comes as President Felix Tshisekedi has agreed to engage in peace talks with the M23 group, with delegations from both sides currently meeting in Doha. Now, despite joint calls for a ceasefire, clashes persist across North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri province, with M23 rebels reportedly seizing more villages. Crowds gathered along the mall in central London as the city prepared to mark the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe Day, which commemorates the end of fighting in Europe during the Second World War. Among those present were families enjoying traditional cream teas and revelers continuing celebrations from the night before. The day's events are set to begin at midday. A military parade and a flypast by the Red Arrows headlined the commemorations. King Charles III, senior members of the royal family, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer were in attendance. Vietnam's National Assembly has opened its 9th session in Hanoi, marking the longest and most ambitious legislative meeting in its history. Scheduled to run for 37 working days in 2 phases, the session will focus on key constitutional amendments and major reforms aimed at modernizing the country's political and administrative systems. National Assembly Chairman Tran Tan Man described the session as a historic turning point, emphasizing efforts toward digital transformation, sustainable development, and institutional streamlining.
Quan mới, chúng ta đã bình tĩnh, bản lĩnh, chủ động tiến hành đồng bộ nhiều biện pháp ứng phó kịp thời, linh hoạt, phù hợp và đạt kết quả bước đầu tích cực. Việt Nam là một trong những nước đầu tiên Hoa Kỳ đồng ý đàm phán và ngày 7 tháng 9 này sẽ tiến hành cái
U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has called for stronger cooperation between the United States and Peru to robustly deter China's potential threats in the hemisphere. Now, during talks with Peruvian Foreign Minister Alma Schleiler at the Pentagon. Now, Hegseth's remarks reflect growing U.S. concerns over China's expanding influence in Latin America, particularly its control of land and critical infrastructure through Chinese companies. He emphasized that Beijing is investing in the region for military advantage and unfair economic gain.
States of America is one of a very, very important friend of ours, a very good ally also, a historic ally in many things, not only in things that are concerning development and progress of the peoples and the welfare of the people, something that of course we all long for the American people and of course for Peruvians, but also in matters regarding defense and security. You just mentioned, Mr. Secretary of Defense, the 2 or 3 things that unite us. We are also, let's say, a target of illegal immigration, of illegal mining, illegal also felling of trees.
Israel's Security Cabinet has approved plans for a significant expansion of its military offensive in Gaza, potentially including taking and holding territory. Tens of thousands of reservists are being mobilized, but implementation appears to be delayed until after President Donald Trump's visit to the region next week. News Central's international correspondent Althea Hagen brings us the details.
Israel's Security Cabinet unanimously approved plans to dramatically escalate its military campaign against Hamas, potentially seizing control of parts of Gaza. The Israeli military confirmed today it's calling up tens of thousands of reservists to support what could become an extended ground operation. The decision comes amid growing frustration in Israel over stalled hostage negotiations. Israeli officials say the offensive aims to pressure Hamas into releasing the 59 hostages still held in Gaza, though critics argue that military escalation has so far failed to secure their release. Security Cabinet Minister Zeev Elkin insisted there's still time for Hamas to negotiate before President Trump's upcoming visit, scheduled for mid-May. The plan reportedly includes establishing an expanded buffer zone along Gaza's borders, allowing Israel greater leverage in ceasefire talks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicated this operation marks a shift from raids to sustained occupations of territory. The humanitarian crisis is deepening, however. Israel, which imposed a blockade on Gaza 2 months ago, also announced plans to restart aid distribution, but under strict military supervision. The UN has condemned this, warning that it violates basic humanitarian principles. Families of hostages have sharply criticized the government, accusing leaders of prioritizing territorial gains over rescuing loved ones. Polls suggest a majority of Israelis share this frustration. With tensions high and international scrutiny increasing, Israel's expanded Gaza offensive could reshape the conflict dramatically, but whether it achieves its aims or deepens the humanitarian crisis remains uncertain. For News Central, I'm Althea Hagen.
The Nigerian State Oil Company, NNPCL, witnessed a leadership shake-up in April with a new board appointed and the former executives reportedly under EFCC investigation. The allegations involved $2.896 billion allocated for refinery rehabilitations and the discovery of a large sum of money linked to a sacked managing director. Omono Okonkwo, communications director at Dear Nigeria, stated that Nigeria's economic struggles are compounded by inefficiencies and debt within the NNPCL. Now, she emphasized the urgent need for significant restructuring and the inclusion of technical expertise to boost oil production.
Nigeria, despite being a legacy oil producer, exports crude oil while importing refined fuel due to insufficient refining capacity. Now, this inefficient system has contributed to financial security, the NNPCL acknowledging approximately $6 billion debt last September. Now, prior to this time, the NNPCL has struggled with financial transparency. Despite beginning to publish accounts in the last 5 years, the company's financial situation still remains opaque, at least to everyday Nigerians. Now, they also face operational efficiency with over 5,700 employees.
You're watching News Now on News Central Television. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we wrap up the news. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Now, with just 11 days to go before the 22nd National Sports Festival begins in Abeokuta, Ogun State, focus is intensifying on the invited junior athletes, a bold initiative by the National Sports Commission, NSC, to fast-track youth development. Dubbed the 38th state, the IJA features over 100 teenage athletes from across Nigeria that are set to compete in 11 key sports, including athletics, swimming, football, and wrestling. The NSF tagged the Gateway Games will host up to 15,000 athletes from May 16th to May 30th. Designed for development but driven by ambition, the IJA will not just participate, they aim to disrupt expectations and signal the arrival of Nigeria's next generation of sports stars. And finally, basketball here as U.S. Monastir, Petro de Lunda and Kiro Star secured Basketball Africa League, that's BAL, playoff sports after key wins wrapped up at the Sahara Conference in Dakar. Monastir beat ASC Ville de Dakar 77-68 to finish top with a 4-2 record, led by Osiris Aldridge's 22 points. Petro was 33, finished second despite a 71-69 overtime loss to Creole Star. Now, Cape Verde's Creole Star 33 took third and a playoff spot thanks to Ivan Almeida's 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists. The BAL continues with the Nile Conference from May 17th to 25th in Kigali, Rwanda. Our top teams will join Al Ittihad, Rivers Hoopers, and Sahara qualifiers in June's BAL playoffs in Pretoria, and that's South Africa. It's pretty much all we can take at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Terror group Lakuruwa has killed 13 hunters in Sokoto forest ambush. Supporters of social media activist Very Dark Man have stormed EFCC and NHRC offices over his arrest. And we also told you that Congolese army has warned it will respond to M23 advance as fighting continues in South Kivu. Now, do remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central on DSTV. We're on channel 422 on DSTV. We're also on GoTV, channel 23. Find us on Star Times, channel 274. If you have Avo TV, you can search for us on there. And you can also stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.